miles, and here's something that might be wearing on your engine. They detect all the trace metals.
Cool.
So you don't want to be doing it too often. The only thing with synthetic oil you got to be careful is if you have an extended range of changing, you got to remember to check it. Because what's happened is people think, oh, good, I can leave this in for 10,000 miles. Well, you still need to check the level. And people have seized up their engine because they didn't add any oil in between, and then that's a big problem. So
and once the engine seizes up, then that's over. You need a new engine, right?
Yeah, and boy, they are not cheap these days because engines are there's a lot of technology in them. So it used to be, you could get an engine change for a couple $1,000s. Now you're into...
But the old way, Dave, I mean, you could just grind out the sections that seized up, right?
Well, the problem is once they take the whole thing apart, they got to pull it out of the car, and that's real complicated now because there's so much more stuff on it as opposed to, let's say, 30, 40 years ago. Once you got it out, well, you might as well just replace everything. Right. And what a lot of places will do, frankly, is they'll just find a low-mileage engine out of a wrecked car. That's actually a more cost-effective way. Let's say someone has the same car you did, but it got totaled when it had 15,000 miles on it. The engine's still good, so they'll get a salvage engine out of a car that way. But ideally, you don't have to ever change the engine in your car because if you keep up on the maintenance, it should last 200,000, 300,000 miles.
Right. What about a red car? Is that do cops pay a lot of attention to red cars?
A friend of mine is a CHP officer. He's been there for a long time. He's actually risen way up in the agency, and I asked him about that years ago, and he said, here's the problem. When you look at high-performance cars, Corvette, the Viper, the Mustang, one of the more popular colors is red. So those cars are going to be out there going fast. He said, we don't discriminate. We give tickets to cars of all colors for speeding.
And one more thing.
Yes.
Mondo asked during the break, what car can he buy to get him the most ass?
Oh, that. Well, then you definitely want a Porsche. I think that's been proven.
Right?
The scientific studies have proven that. Speaking of that, I actually...
I did not say
that. He didn't. We actually talked off the air. He's looking for a car, but he needs something that's good to drive back and forth to work and practical, as he should.
Yeah, to drive my ass to work. That's what I said. The best car to drive my ass to work.
Oh, the translation got a little mixed up there. Sorry about that.
I was wondering how long it would take him to deny that. There was a like, what?
There was a guy who was the design director at Ford for a number of years, a guy named Jay Mays, and he was so prolific that the Museum of Contemporary Art downtown actually did an exhibit on his work years ago, and he had the best line. He said, if you want to look at someone who they are, look at their house. If you want to look at who they want to be, look at their car.
Yeah.
And that's really true. You find guys living in a rent-controlled one-bedroom apartment somewhere, but he's leased a new BMW 3 Series. So
I
that's
call
kind of
those
an LA
D-bags, but that's me. All right, buddy, you're a giant stud. Thanks for coming on, and good luck with the huge special coming up this week.
Tim, thank you so much. Always a pleasure, and have a great weekend.
Channel 7 at 5 o'clock every night?
Yeah, all week, and then next weekend, too, Saturday and Sunday.
Excellent. All right, buddy, you really appreciate coming on.
Giant stud. Thanks a lot.
There
Bye-bye.
he goes. All right, there goes. He's the best. That Dave Coons. He really is truly a really decent guy. Conway Show.
Let me teach you how to eat. Let me teach you how to eat.
It is the Fork Report and Fork Reporter. Neil Saavedra's with us. Neil, how are you, bub?
Hey, brother. I'm good. How are you?
Oh, you sound great, man. I don't know what you've done with your equipment, but of all the radio shows that are broadcasting from home, yours sounds like 10 times better than everybody else's.
Well, that's mighty nice of you. I don't even know how to accept that, but thank you.
What have you done?
I've got a board. I've got Comrex.
I got that. I got both those. Do you have any foam around you?
We have, what's funny is I took down the foam. I used to have foam, but when we just replastered the house, and I didn't want to put foam back up, so we got heavier curtains and carpet, and put clothed furniture, and it does the trick.
See, I thought it was the opposite. I'm in my bathtub. And
those hard surfaces. That's where that's they call that live. You're in a live space now.
Damn it! So thanks, grilling, man. This is going to be huge. I don't know if you've noticed this, Neil, and maybe you're not going out to the supermarket as often as you used to. But I'm noticing. I went last week to the market, and there are a ton of 25 to 30 pound turkeys out there that are not going to be bought this year.
You're probably not. I mean, when you think about it, when you're breaking down turkeys for a holiday, you're looking at 1.5 pounds per person. So let's say you've got 4 people in the house now. You're not going to invite anybody else to so you've got leftovers, a 10-pound turkey. You're going to have plenty of leftovers. I don't think too much leftovers. But once you start getting into those unnatural birds, because there is no turkey on the planet that grows up, to be 20 pounds or more. That's like...
How does my credit score affect me?
Companies use your credit score to predict how likely you are to pay your bills on time, based on the information in your credit report. The higher your score, the more likely you are to be approved for things like loans and credit cards, and pay less for them. If your credit history is good, your credit score will be too. Check your credit reports often to make sure that everything in them is accurate. And if you find mistakes, there are steps you can take to fix them. To learn more, go to ftc.gov/creditmatters.
Discovery Plus is the greatest collection of real-life entertainment on the planet. 55,000 episodes from networks like TLC, HGTV, and tons more. Woohoo! Discovery Plus. Stream now. Stream what you love.
Genetic freakdom.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, turkeys are not massive animals. They're bred that way to get big like that, and the breasts big and stuff like that. They're not. You're not going to have a bird that big in the wild.
That's wild. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is crazy the way they get them so massive.
Yeah, I always feel bad for the bird that the president pardons, because that bird, instead of having its head cut off and people enjoying him, is going to live a miserable 18 more months and then die under his own weight.
You're talking about the bird, right?
Right.
I was going to say, well, effing you.
Yeah. No, the bird is overweight. They're not supposed to be that big, and they go out on a farm and they just explode.
That's interesting. I don't know if they're like.
I don't think they're treated well.
You can get heritage birds and things like that are not bred to be that massive. I always say you get better flavor if you go for 2 smaller birds anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. The best turkey we've ever had were the smaller turkeys. The big ones, they seem too airy. There's not as much flavor per bite.
Yeah, it's just size.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting. I really don't know how to call it, and I don't know that anybody does. I've read everything and seen people talk about what they are predicting, even Butterball and
right.
And the like, to try and figure out,
Hey, what about deep frying turkeys? Are people still doing that and risking burning the house down?
Yeah, people love doing it when it's done properly.
Right.
When you don't, 2 things you don't want to do. First,
let me try to guess what they are.
Okay.
Okay. One is you don't put a frozen bird in there.
Oh, excellent. There's 3 things you don't want to do.
Okay.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. One is you don't want to do it inside, and you don't want to make the oil too hot.
No, the oil heat is fine. The ice is a problem because oil and water, as we know, don't mix. When it's in ice form, it basically explodes. I mean, the heat of the oil causes it's the equivalent of splashing water on an oil fire. It just spreads. Right. So that is a no-no. Another thing is not doing a dry run with the turkey in its bag into water, cold water, because what you want to do is see the water displacement, and then you'll know where to put the oil line. Because people will just fill it up with oil and then drop a turkey in there and don't account for the mass of the turkey, and then all the hot oil comes out, usually onto the wood deck, which is my other point. Right. People doing it on their wood deck. Right. You need a lot of space. You have to be far from trees. You have to really do it proper, and you have to have a mechanism for lowering it in safely and not dropping it in. And I've seen a bunch of makeshift ones. People have used metal, like swing sets and things like that for making a hoist or to slowly lower it down so they're not putting their hands near it. you've got to read and watch as much as you can, and to do it right. And there's a lot of guys like, it's no big deal, and those are the wingnuts that we see every year with their houses burned down.
Right, but I don't know if there's a tremendous advantage, an additional advantage to the turkey is so good it's worth an emergency room, right? Like if you put it in your oven, you have much less chance of burning your house down.
It's pretty good, Tim.
It is pretty good,
though,
huh?
It's pretty good. Here, it's moister because
really,
it's encased in the oil, and when it's encased in the oil, the evaporation is different. It's extracting liquids. That's what oil does. So it certainly does that, but it does it in the right places, like the skin, to get the skin crispy. All the while insulating the breast meat and the lower fat meats, that lean areas that end up getting very dry. So that's one plus. The second plus is that it goes way quicker.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
so what's the temperature the oil should be at? I'm going to try it this year.
When you're
you talked me into it
poorly. This is going to end so bad. That is one notch above Handel telling me he's going to try it. Actually, you do cook. I'm just being a smartass. But the oil, when you're frying, your oil is going to be anywhere from 325 to 375. So it depends on the size of what you have and how you're doing it. And a lot of these things, people are doing them with an open flame beneath them, and that becomes an issue too. What's that?
Hey, that's the only way to do it. Get out there with that open flame. Fire it up.
Hey, Neil.
Yes.
Remember
Gina,
what I asked you the other day? Maybe you should let people know that that's a bad idea too.
Oh,
when I texted you my emergency question.
I get a text from Gina. She's all, I'm on with Adam right now. He wants to deep fry a turkey with stuffing.
Inside.
And I heard the phone, and I was doing something, and I walked over to it and read it, and you could imagine it was one of those Hitchcockian where they push the camera towards you and then back the lens off, and it's like, and I went, no, and I was typing in slow motion, sweet baby Jesus in a golden diaper, no. Here's the problem. Whenever you put anything inside the bird, it changes the density. That's why, and this is another thing people hate when I say this, and there's going to be a bunch of dudes that are ticked off. Beer can chicken, two things. The beer does nothing. There's not, scientifically, the beer, you are not getting to a boiling point, which is 212 degrees, in which it would change the beer or whatever liquid into steam, in which it would possibly permeate the flesh of the bird. Two, it changes the density of the bird, and now the whole bird has to get up to 165 degrees to be cooked. By shoving something in its business, now that becomes one thing that has to get up to 165. That's why stuffing a bird in an oven is not a good idea, because now you have density that is still a little different than the flesh, but now brings it to a point where everything in the center and the outside has to be at 165, which is going to dry something out, or you're going to get layers of doneness. And when you get layers of doneness, you get different temperatures, and when you have different temperatures, that's where bacteria lives. Right. So it's pretty risky to do a turkey with stuffing in it. If you're going to do it, you have to take the temperature in the center. Now, that's in a dry environment like your oven. Now you take that, you cram that into the bird, and you put it in a deep fryer. You've got two things. You've got a bread sponge in the carcass ready to absorb all that oil. And then you have the problem of changing the density of the bird. Now you don't have the hot oil going on the inside, which is what gives you a quicker cook. So it's like at that point, you're going to have a wet, oily bread stuff on the inside and an uneven cook. So it's like,
why?
Yeah.
Why?
At that point,
can you stay with us?
Of course.
Thank heaven you said that, because
that's cool. I've never heard him ask anybody that. So I feel like, hey, I'm the guy who wants to stay longer.
Adam thought all he needed was like some mesh grating to put over the cavity of the bird and just sink it in there.
Well, that'll keep it from floating out, but that's not the only problem.
Got it. I'm going to play this for him.
Yeah.